transferring money through a third party can add substantial fees, and using cryptocurrency bypasses those. However, does using the emerging technology invite additional risks? Today's guest is Erica Stanford. Erica is founder of the Crypto Curry Club, UK's #1 rated networking educational event for blockchain, digital currency, crypto, payments, AI, and tech for sustainability. She is the author of the book Crypto Wars, Faked Deaths, Missing Billions, and Industry Disruption. Erica is a public speaker, crypto courier, and does blockchain industry reviews. I'm your host, Chris Parker, and this is the Easy Pray Podcast. Erica, thank you so much for coming on the Easy Pray Podcast today.
Hey, thank you, Chris. So thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. Can you give us a little background about how you got involved in the crypto space?
Yeah, sure. So I first heard about crypto early 2017 and started having a look at it and playing around and saw just how easy it was to just send and receive money. But what had sort of sparked my interest before then, I'd lived in Buenos Aires during the economic crash by chance as a year abroad from uni, so around the 2008 period. And this was a time of just sort of crazy economic uncertainty, and people just didn't trust banks, didn't trust governments. And, people walking around the streets, banging pots and pans, protesting about the situation there. But the key learning from there is everybody I met, my friends, they took you into their houses and they don't keep money in banks. The first thing they did when they got paid, they cashed it out they got paid in pesos, cashed it out and converted it straight away into euros and dollars and kept the banknotes in safes in their houses. Because the one thing, you don't keep money in local currency, you don't keep money in banks. And that had sort of stayed with me. And the summer before that, I used to spend summers just sort of traveling around, burning up my student loan mostly. But the summer before that, I'd spent traveling around Guatemala and got mugged, I think, 4 times in a row quite early on. I was a little blonde thing traveling around by myself. And so I was left with no cards, no traveler's checks, none of the ways I'd brought with me that enabled me to get money out. So I remember I was stranded in this little village in sort of the rainforesty type area, just no cards, nothing left. And the only way I could get money was I had to walk to the local Western Union, which was a walk sort of several miles away, and quite a long walk through sort of probably the less safe area, and call my dad in the UK, who kindly sent me money. And then that took 3 days to arrive. So I had to go back 3 days later, and they charged 14%. And that was the only way in Guatemala you could get money in without a bank card. And I remember even then thinking, this is crazy. It's okay for me, I was there on the summer. But that is regular life for a lot of people, who have people working abroad or working remotely or whatever. And, you look at it, you've got a third of the world's population don't have access to banking. You've got 2.5 billion people around the world who don't have access to banking because they don't earn enough, basically, so that banks don't deem it economically viable or basically worth their while to give them banking facilities. So that's people who can't send money digitally or save money or so forth, and literally have to rely on these remittance companies who charge up to 30%, but charge an average of 7%. And that's the poorest people around the world, people who earn, often less than $1, but, certainly less than $10 typically a day, giving up to basically a third of their total earnings just to these remittance companies to be able to send money home to their families to be able to eat. And that, in many cases, that's the difference between do you eat or not, or does your kid eat or not, or does your kid get to go to school or not? It's an enormous amount of money. So that had really stuck with me, and just thinking, how crazy the system was. And it's fine when you're in the US or you're in London and you can pay for everything with your card or with your iPhone or whatever, but that isn't reality for a lot of the world. So then when I heard about crypto and you start playing around it, you can send money basically instantly, basically for free, tiny amounts of money that you just can't do with government currency. And anybody can do that without, as long as you've got access to an internet or to a smartphone, anybody can send money like that basically for free and instantly. So that had really stuck with me. So I was really interested in use cases, started playing around, started looking into it, read everything I could about it, and then just wanted to meet more people in the space. And that's sort of how the Crypto Curry Club started.
That's awesome. So, what is the Crypto Curry Club?
So the Crypto Curry Club is we've now got the main crypto, blockchain and emerging tech community in the UK. So it started off, I wanted to meet more people in this space. I wanted to meet more people and understand more. At the time, there was no real community, and there were some events, but either they were super dry and technical, or mostly their sales pitches or scams, but it was really hard to meet other people. So Crypto Curry Club. Curry is a national food in the UK. Everybody loves curry. And so we, traditionally in the UK, you have lots of events where you've got a Christmas curry or a curry get together where you get together in a group and share food with people. So we started doing this, but for the crypto and blockchain industries. So effectively, until lockdown, we had, one a week or so at the end. Events where we'd hire out a restaurant and get people together and invite only, but we had all of the leaders, the founders of the main crypto and blockchain and tech companies in the UK. We had C-suite from many of the world's biggest organizations, everything from, sort of the biggest search browsers, people from Google, Apple, Facebook came, to the UN, to the police, to the law firms, to the universities, to the media, to the sort of newspapers wanting to find out what was happening, to all of the startups and sort of exciting companies working in space, getting together, all sharing about what they were up to, what they were working on, asking each other ideas and talking about the future and sort of really sort of brainstorming together, but in a really sort of safe, closed Chatham House Rules environment with lots of everybody's favorite food and drink all together. So, really, really fun events, but really fun events with, the biggest minds and the people sort of really driving the way in crypto and blockchain in the UK. So yeah, we've built up now the main community in the UK, which for the last roughly year and a half now has been fully virtual because we're still in lockdown.
So for the audience, in 2 minutes or less or so, what is cryptocurrency and what is blockchain? We'll leave tokenization out of this conversation.
I mean, these are always, explaining it simply is always the hardest questions, of course. So cryptocurrency it's basically a digital currency where you've got money that's secured by encryption that can be sent on blockchain. And what that basically means is, you've got a permanent sort of record of every time currencies are sent, and you've got what crypto enables is the ability for one person to send money to another without needing to trust a third party. And that's really the first time that's been able to happen. So before you had crypto with government currency, unless you're physically with somebody, if I'm physically with you and I don't know, I want to buy a hat from you, you've got a hat, I've got £10 or a $10 note, we can exchange one for the other and feel relatively secure that, yes, I've seen the hat, yes, you've been able to expect the $10 and see that it's not a fake one, and I can see that the hat is good and we can swap one for the other, and I trust that you can't run faster than I can to run away with the hat before we do the fair exchange. But that hasn't been possible digitally. You always have had to trust a third party. Now that might be a card provider, it might be a payment processor, it might be a bank, it might be something like Amazon or eBay, whereby effectively you send money to them, somebody sends the product to them, and they have a sort of escrow system whereby you have to trust the third party to do the exchange. And that sort of mostly works well, whereby the third party is trusted, but it's happened multiple times now where the third party has disappeared, where the third party goes bankrupt. Even if you're trusting your money to banks, it's happened where there's been effectively bank runs where people haven't been able to withdraw your cash, because if you keep money in a bank, if you have $100 in the bank, that doesn't mean you have the $100 physically in a personalized sort of physical department for you. In actual fact, they might keep 10 of those dollars and then lend the others out. And then if enough of those people want to get their $100 or all of their money in their accounts all in one go, they don't have that money, so people can't get their money out. So crypto has just been it was created in 2009 with Bitcoin, but still a new technology that enables anybody to send money directly to another person, and you can see exactly every stage of that transaction. You can see what address is sent it. You can see that it's been received. You can have sort of checks on it to see that how it's been checked and that it's arrived. So you've got a full level of transparency with crypto that hadn't been possible previously. Now, of course, you've got other sort of more private cryptocurrencies that avoid that, but the core tech is that you've got this transparency that you wouldn't otherwise have. And because you're sort of bypassing a lot of these third parties, and it's a different technology to sort of government fiat currency, you can send absolute micro amounts. You can send 1 cent basically free of charge instantly. You can send money abroad basically free of charge instantly, but securely. So it's just a whole new way of sending money securely, that where you've got much more transparency than you would with government currency. Blockchain, it's effectively a system that cryptocurrency is built on, and it's basically it's a ledger. It's a way to store information or to store money, and that it is sort of information is added to in a time sequential manner. So what you've got with blockchain, because it's effectively impossible to sort of go back and erase information that's added. You can't go back and erase information that's been added or go back and change information that's been added. You can add on additional information, but how sort of blockchain works as a core, you've got full transparency of who has added information, who has sent what data, who has said what, and at what time point. So what blockchain brings is a way to sort of store information securely, and where, say, for example, in an Excel spreadsheet, information can just be changed or edited and you can go back and delete things. You can't do that with blockchain. So blockchain just brings a lot more transparency and accountability to a lot of industries now, including finance.
And with cryptocurrency, one of the big things is that these transactions are often fee-free, without fees.
Right.
And then when you're talking about, like, Western Union or these small money transfer places charging up to 30%,
right.
Someone who's not having to pay that 30%, that's a huge difference in their life.
Totally. And with cryptocurrencies, there's cryptocurrencies and cryptocurrencies, and some of the older ones are more expensive to send. So you've got some instances where you've got relatively high transaction fees, but then you've got other cryptocurrencies that are much lighter, where you can literally send 1 cent basically free of charge, and you simply can't send 1 cent digitally if it's government money. There's a cost to doing so. It will cost roughly sort of 30 to 50 cents to send such a small transaction. So I mean, you often used to see, at least in the UK, this was back a few years maybe, but before lockdown, shops would have signs saying that they won't accept less than £5 or less than £10, and maybe you had the same in States, because it costs them too much money for the transaction to do so. They lose out too much money for doing so. Whereas with crypto, that can bypass a lot of that. And on the other side of crypto, there was a transaction recently where $1 billion was sent, and that cost $7 to send. And that's, it's easy to think that that's easy, but that just doesn't happen in government currency. Certainly, if anybody remembers sending money abroad, they traditionally companies have added on huge extra fees, partly because there is a cost to doing so, partly because they had the monopoly. And crypto bypasses that and just makes it easier and cheaper for anybody to send money, however small that is, which opens up a whole new world of opportunities where you can just send $1 home a day to your family because that's what you've earned and you're working abroad, or you could pay for a content, or pay somebody who likes your show, or pay for rewards or incentives or loyalty points, 1 cent here, 1 cent there, which just isn't otherwise possible.
Yeah. And I suppose with emerging unregulated tech, it leads to scams coming out of the woodworks, I assume.
Yeah, exactly. And that has been a huge problem in crypto. And like with any emerging technology, I mean, we had the same with the .com era. It's happened before several times. And I think where scams have got so much worse in crypto than in other industry sectors or other new industry sectors is because you've got this new sort of emerging technology that it's people don't really understand, and it's new and it's a shiny new toy, and people have taken advantage of that. Plus, because it's digital money and it's very volatile digital money. So some of these sort of the earlier cryptocurrencies shot up hugely in value, and people have seen that. And other ones have been so volatile that people have made huge amounts of money by sort of trading them. So where I think crypto has been bad, and people have sort of got caught up in sort of obsession with this sort of the trading volatile bubble, is that such huge amounts of money have been made and potentially could be made. It is that the scams have taken advantage of that and taken advantage of people's need for money or greed or desperation or whatever that is, and taken advantage of their vulnerabilities and promised all of these get rich quick schemes. So you've had all of these scams promising, oh, just send us your money and we've got this trading algorithm, so we'll double it for you, or send us your money and we've got these mining machines that mine crypto, so we'll give you X% return, or send us your money and because it's crypto, it's just going to magically go up in value and you'll get X% returns. And they don't quite say it's magical. They say, well, we've got this amazing new cryptocurrency or this amazing new project or this amazing new technology which is going to do X, Y, Z. And the problem was, because in crypto there was so much hype around it, particularly around the sort of about the 2016 to 2018, what was known as sort of an ICO era, initial coin offering era, where people realized how easy it is to create a new cryptocurrency out of thin air. And what sort of happened in that time, you've got the original cryptocurrencies. I mean, Ethereum is the main one that was used for this, and that's a very good, legitimate, useful blockchain and useful currency that many people have faith in. But with Ethereum, it's open source, so anybody can copy the code and create a new, effectively copycat cryptocurrency. So you could create a cryptocurrency, you could copy the code, create a new cryptocurrency out of thin air. And the problem was that you had all these freelancers popping up as sort of crypto experts on all of the gig sites. So anybody could pay very, very little amounts of money and you'd get the code copied and then you could give it a name. You could say, well, I've got Chris coin, and you decide how many new coins you're going to have. And you could say, well, I'm going to have 10 billion Chris tokens, and then you pay a freelancer who will just copy someone else's website or, get a template of a website, copy that, create a logo for you, and they'd create some wording around that or create a white paper to say what your Chris coin project is going to do. And, often it's all they were copied, and then you'd want to have a team to show that you've got other people working Chris coin. So they'd fake a few profiles or use a few famous people's or a few people active in the space and use their profile, not necessarily tell them that they were going to put them on their websites. One famously used Ryan Gosling, just a famous, an actor of a photo of the famous actor Ryan Gosling, to say, well, this is our graphic designer, and gave him some other name. Totally brazen. But it costs so little money. For a couple $100, you could have your own Chris coin created, and you could have 10 billion Chris coins created, and you could get them listed on a listing site and listed, and then you could sell your Chris coins, and you could say, well, my Chris coins are going to be worth X amount each, and because of blah 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 reason, they're going to go up in value. So if you buy your Chris coins now, they'll be up in value, and people bought them. And some of these projects that were literally awful ideas that had no business value, nothing behind them, no use case whatsoever, raised millions, and some raised billions, but they raised sometimes huge amounts of money, just sort of caught up in this hype cycle. And it's easy to be disparaging of ICO projects. The actual concept of the initial coin offering as a way of raising money is great and innovative, and enabled projects to raise money without having to go to banks for loans or having to go to VCs. They could effectively crowd fund raises, which is great. And there's some really, really good projects came out of that are still going today and have done really well for their investors. But there was a lot of opportunists took advantage of the space. And then the scam sort of got into that, and there was this whole ecosystem built up where people realized of how easy, you had people make money in crypto, and just a lot of opportunists realized how easy it was to separate people from their money. And the thing with crypto is, once you've sent it to somebody, it's not like a bank where you can call them and go, oh, I've been scammed, can you try and get it back from me? You don't have that third party, so you're effectively responsible for your money. So that they worked out that if they could just get people to send them their crypto by some fake promises and fake partnerships and whatever, people made huge amounts of money and then effectively just disappeared.
So what are some of the scams that you've seen in the crypto space? I think of within the last year, there was the Twitter hack where a bunch of well-known Twitter accounts were used to post, "Hey, I'm feeling happy today. Send me $1,000 in Bitcoin,
Right.
and I'll double it and
Yeah.
send it back to you." And
Right. Or
obviously, that was a
or
scam.
this or so and so celebrity feels really bad because of the coronavirus pandemic. So send us your money, we'll send you back double. That's one of the common ones. And sometimes it was even celebrities and influencers profiles got hacked, so it made out to look as if they're actually sending that. And also scammers are so good now. They're really advanced and sophisticated, so they can make websites and Twitter accounts and email addresses that look very, very similar to the original. So if you're not expecting to be scammed, it could be hard to tell that it's not necessarily Elon Musk offering to double your Bitcoin or whatever celebrity it was. So that was one of them. I mean, one of the sort of the biggest forms of scams that we've seen the most of, and that's probably affected the most people, are these Ponzi schemes. So it's these sort of pyramid schemes, and there's been a number of them, that have raked in billions of dollars a piece in many cases. So you've got these sort of Ponzi schemes whereby work on a sort of pyramid structure, and they use what's called multi-level marketing or network marketing. So unlike a sort of a standard sales practice whereby if you sell something then it's just you selling it, they've got this really, really clever and highly incentivized reward structure whereby if you sell something to somebody, you get rewarded for bringing them in. And then if they sell something to somebody else, you also get rewarded and get a share of that, going down multiple levels. So you had these sort of Ponzi schemes whereby they'd say that they've got this new algorithm, this new trading algorithm, which will trade Bitcoin for you. So if you just send them your Bitcoin, send them your money, they'll trade it and you'll get back X% a day. And the algorithm never existed. The trading software never existed. It was a Ponzi scheme. They paid out early on to get more and more people to put in, and eventually it collapsed. Or, there was some about mining. So Bitcoin and cryptocurrency is traditionally created with a process called mining, whereby you've got these sort of computer hardware devices that use energy to, in Bitcoin's case, to solve algorithms. And if your sort of hardware is the one that solves the algorithms, and you win Bitcoin, and that can be relatively lucrative. But it's hard and it's complicated. You've got to have lots of expensive equipment. It releases lots of heat. There's lots of reasons why you don't particularly want to open a Bitcoin mining farm in your house, not least that it's not efficient to do it in that scale. But you had these Ponzi schemes would claim to be these Bitcoin mining operations, and they just say, well, don't worry about the volatility of crypto, don't worry about mining Bitcoin, just send us your Bitcoin, look at us, we've got all these mining rigs and we'll do all of the work for you, and then we'll send you this guaranteed return. And then of course they never actually had any mining equipment. Again, it was just a Ponzi scheme. Or they'd say, well, we'll create this new cryptocurrency, or we've got this, whatever it is offer, just send us your money and you'll get double back because we've got this cryptocurrency and you'll get more than that, or we'll send you more, or it will go up in value, or whatever it was. So they used all of these sort of schemes to entice people to send their money. All of them involved about targeting vulnerable people who perhaps didn't research or didn't know better, or trusted the system, and promising easy money. And of course they paid out to the first few people. So why they got so bad is that the people that got involved, they got their money back initially, and they saw it working and they saw it making profits. So they went to their friends and their families and their communities, and yes, some of these people knew exactly what was happening and just wanted to get the rewards for bringing other people in. But a lot of people were innocently involved because they saw it and they believed it, and they saw initially that they were getting their money back. So they then went to their friends and their families and their communities. And then it got so entrenched that by the time they found out that it was a scam, they're too entrenched because they've brought everyone they knew in. And I think where some of these Ponzi schemes got really bad and were really sad is you had religious leaders and community leaders promoting the scams and promoting these projects. So people, they were buying from people they trusted, and so many people from all around the world, but particularly people who really can't afford to lose money, were trusting their communities and trusting their religious leaders and so forth, and sending their money in. And you hear all these stories now where people literally sold everything, sold their houses, sold their livestock, took loans out to invest because they thought this is our one chance to have an easier life. And they've lost all of that money. And, it's the problem is it's a bit grey because some people knew exactly what they were doing and were just scamming people. And other people were, yes, they brought more people in, but they were also victims to it because they believed in it and, initially thought they were going to get their own money back as well. So it's quite a grey area with who was scamming and who was sort of innocently bringing other people in.
Yeah. Are there any, like with the Ponzi schemes, you talked specifically about a reward structure for bringing other people into the program. That's to me, that's one of those giveaways that something is amiss.
Totally.
If someone's, I'm going to pay you to bring people into our product, it's like, okay, that should be a red flag. What are some of the other red flags about those scams?
I mean, it's a massive red flag, and multi-level marketing is sort of grey with some products, but dubious at best. And the other red flags is a lot of them would promise things that are just too good to be true. So, I mean, for example, there was a crypto exchange that recently disappeared in Turkey with $2.2 billion worth of their user money, and they promised that you'd be able to buy Dogecoin, which is sort of a meme cryptocurrency, which at the time was being pumped and really hyped, largely due to Elon Musk and others sort of tweeting about it. But they were promoting that you could buy this meme cryptocurrency cheaper on their exchange. So they managed to get people to put $2.2 billion onto their exchange just because you could buy it cheaper there. And so, I mean, that's one of the themes there with crypto exchanges. There are ways that you can store crypto securely. There's institutional grade crypto custody and crypto storage solutions where you can, in fact, store cryptocurrency very, very securely if you want, or if that's what the exchange wants. And there are other exchanges that, rather than using any of that security, just use an exchange as a way to sort of centrally amass all of everybody's crypto. And then once they've decided they've got enough, they've got that all in one address instead of storing it individually and do a runner. And that's happened a few times. So if there's any promises for getting anything too cheap, for example, and then other scams will offer all of these sort of promises or guarantees that, if you send us your money, we'll guarantee that you get X% interest every day or X% return every day. And, anything that says that, it's illegal to sort of guarantee things like that, but it's also impossible. And, I mean, the problem is now you've got some of these sort of DeFi or decentralized finance protocols where they've got this concept sort of called, staking, where effectively you leave your money there, and then by holding it there, they pay you interest. And that works slightly differently and, isn't by nature a scam. But, any project that promises or claims sort of guarantees that you'll get X% return in interest, it isn't possible to do that. And just if you sort of look a little bit outside, banks and trading funds and so forth have the best infrastructure in the world, and they can get the best traders and the best trading software. And, there's no money isn't an object when it comes to these funds, and they can't guarantee those returns. So when you've got a little startup sort of claiming huge returns, go on the assumption it isn't possible. And then the other red flag is you've got all of these, the scams would make these huge claims. They'd say, well, they've got this partnership with Visa, with MasterCard, or with this payment provider, or with banks or governments or regulators or whatever. And they'd claim to have all these partnerships, or they'd list companies that they had as customers, or they'd list people that were working on part of their team or advisors to them, people who maybe were famous or, experts in their space. And the problem of the scams is that they're so brazen that the fact that they don't actually have those partnerships, or don't actually have that regulation, or don't actually have those customers, and that those people have never heard of the projects and certainly wouldn't be promoting it, it isn't a problem. So it's really easy to look at some of the scam websites and to think it looks good because of the claims that they make. But I would say for anything in the space, I mean, in general, there's so much sort of fraud and dishonesty going on there. You really have to double, triple check everything that is said. And, if somebody is held to be an advisor or be a partner check it. Is it on their social media? Is it on their profile? Maybe reach out to some of the companies or see, is there any other evidence that they are in fact working together for a customer? And, I would say as soon as you find one thing to be dishonest, one person who isn't actually working there, one partnership that isn't actually the case, go on the assumption that the rest is probably not as honest also.
That's a good thought process. If the first thing that you check turns out to be not true, there's got to be other. If you find out something that's not true, there's going to be other things that are not true that you just haven't found out yet.
Right.
So is this what led you? Is all this what led you to writing your book?
No, no. So how we got onto the sort of crypto scams book, there was a podcast series in the UK. It was called the Missing Crypto Queen series. It was about the OneCoin scam, which is now transpired to have stolen about $25 billion estimated of people. So
wow.
huge scam. And it's been, some of the founders are sitting in US jails at the moment. The sort of FBI and SEC and so forth are hunting down the others, and the founder has been on the run from the FBI for several years now. So law enforcement are on it, and it's been officially shut down, and yet it's still ongoing. This is such a huge scam. And if you type OneCoin into LinkedIn, for example, I can find over 100 people who are still actively promoting it on their profiles. And there's still people who haven't quite somehow got the memo that it's a scam and that it's being shut down. There's still people promoting it. So the point is that it's such a huge scam, and it got totally out of control. And the BBC did this incredible podcast series about this scam and the missing crypto queen and where she's gone and trying to hunt her down and what actually happened behind the scenes. And so in late 2019, I was sent a link to this podcast series and was just, it instantly hooked. It's just very well done. So listened to the whole thing and sent a message to the guy, Jamie Bartlett, who had hosted it, asking if he might be willing to perhaps speak at one of our Crypto Curry Club events. And, I didn't for a minute expect that he'd actually, reply or say yes, but he said yes and that he'd love to. And so he came and spoke at one of our events, and we had about 60 people from the community there asking all sorts of questions. And it was an incredible day. He told us some of the stories that they couldn't necessarily share in the podcast, and told us some of these behind the scenes sort of stories about tracking down and researching this scam. And because our community, the Crypto Curry Club, a lot of people in it, they're sort of founders of a lot of the crypto projects and companies, but they're people that have been in the space often since the earliest days. So quite a few people from that event came up to me, during the event or afterwards, and saying, well, they'd witnessed such and such other scam, and they'd seen such and such other scam, and had tried to stop it and to try to contact the authorities and to try to raise awareness about it. And some of them had death threats, and they told me their stories because, it's organized crime in many cases running these scams. So they told me their stories of, what they'd seen sort of early on and what they tried to do to stop it and how it happened and so forth, and got me into all of these different sort of social media chat groups run by the scams, where you've got the scams, the scams sort of blatantly promoting scams, and scammers sort of actively targeting people in these groups and just scamming each other right in front of your eyes on these Facebook groups and on these, on these sort of social media chat groups that, anybody can effectively ask to be added to. So I was added to these groups, and it just opens up this whole world where you really see how good at marketing they are, how persuasive they are, how good the people are who they employ to be able to sort of drive this sort of community and this belief and this sort of almost cult-like sort of following of a lot of them. So I'd been sort of brought into that world through hosting that event, and you started hearing people and start seeing everything that's actively still going on and how blatant these scams are. And then a publisher asked me if I'd want to do it. They had this idea to do this book called Crypto Wars about all the biggest crypto scams, and asked if I would like to write it because I had the community, if I had any ideas. So I just got back to them with an outline of what I thought the biggest scams were, and they thought it sounded good, so I started writing. So it sort of really happened from that event and from having the community. And I mean, the good thing with having the community is not only have you got access to the founders of all of the good projects, but all of the founders of the good projects and people that have been in the space early on know a lot of people that had been researching scams. So I was introduced just to an incredible variety of people to speak to.
That's awesome. And the book is called Crypto Wars, Fake Deaths, Missing Billions, and Industry Disruption, correct?
That's the one. Yeah.
That's awesome. And it's coming out late July, available anywhere you can get a book?
That's right. It's on Amazon. It's at independent booksellers. It's available via the publisher koganpage.com. We've got a 20% discount there. Code, I think it's Crypto Wars 20 is a discount code. But yeah, Amazon or anywhere else, it's available.
That's awesome. If anyone wants to find out more about the Crypto Curry Club or you, how can they find you online?
So we're at the Crypto Curry Club. That's cryptocurryclub.com. Also at Twitter and LinkedIn and so forth. Can email hello@cryptocurryclub.com. Follow us on Twitter, follow us on LinkedIn, and yeah, get the book.
Any
and read up about the biggest hacks, scams, crimes in crypto.
I'm really interested to read about. Okay, so what's before we wrap up? Okay, you started with faked deaths. What is one of the faked deaths involved in the crypto scams?
Well, the most famous fake deaths, and it's not yet known if it's a fake death. So there was a Canadian crypto exchange called currier, which has recently been ruled to have been a scam from the start, and that the guys running it had previously been involved in other sort of Ponzi schemes and in money laundering and so forth. And, one had already been arrested for something related to faked identities. So it's recently been ruled to be a scam from the start. But at the time, it was Canada's biggest crypto exchange, and it looked trustworthy and people trusted it and put $250 million into this crypto exchange. And then the founder somewhat mysteriously wrote a will, went on honeymoon to India, and died, in inverted commas, under, various mysterious circumstances, which we go into more in the depth in the book. And I think the thing with that story is I haven't yet met a single person in the crypto space who believes that this guy died. Not a single one. It's possible that he actually died. It's possible, in which case I was, sad for him on his honeymoon and bad timing. But the majority of people in the space certainly don't believe he died. And there's been this whole sort of legal thing going through with lawyers and the police asking for his body to be exhumed to have some sort of proof. But the reality is you've got this crypto exchange where the founder sort of either mysteriously disappeared or died, but he was the only one who had access to the private keys holding all of the people's crypto. So that's still an ongoing mystery saga, and maybe one day we'll find out. So that's the fake death that we speak about in that book, at least.
I mean, I could definitely see whether that particular death is real or fake when you're talking hundreds of millions or billions of dollars involved in scams. That's a lot of opportunity and a lot of motivation for someone to fake their death.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, as we've seen with even with the OneCoin scenario, you've got Dr. Rouge, the founder, who disappeared in 2017. It's been hunted by the FBI ever since. Now it's, in my opinion, very likely that she's been killed. There's organized crime, there's Bulgarian mafia, there's multiple parties who would be incentivized to get rid of her because she knows a lot. If she's ever caught, she's never going to get out of jail. I think that's a safe assumption. And so she knows a lot, and she's only going to be motivated to talk because if there's anything that can get you out of a lifetime of jail, she's got the knowledge. So my opinion is she's probably been bumped off. I say that without having, vastly heard anything to the contrary or otherwise. But, it's a very real reality when you're really sort of talking into it and looking into it. This woman's got billions of dollars, most likely, to her name that she's managed to get from it, and likes plastic surgery and can speak multiple languages and is highly intelligent. And it does make you wonder how one can hide. If you've got enough money and, if you're happy to go through plastic surgery and, use a different name or, maybe not see your family or whatever again, the question is there, how long can one hide, or how successfully can one hide? And there is still a line of thought of people thinking that she's, absolutely living it up, had a bit of plastic surgery, changed her appearance, changed the color of her hair, maybe speaking a different language, living under a different name. All of these things though are possible with money.
Yeah,
So
with those vast sums of money.
with such vast sums of money, for sure. Yeah.
But isn't it the sort of thing where, let's say, can't they? This is me asking questions, technical here. Don't they know what wallets were used to store some of the money? Wouldn't they see lack of transactions being a good indication that the person is not at least active?
Well, this is an interesting thing with crypto, and yes, one can. Yes, one can. If you've got a crypto wallet that you're monitoring and there's suddenly a transaction, then and especially if you think that crypto wallet can only be accessed by someone who's supposedly dead, then yes, alarm bells would ring. And yes, you've now got this incredible sort of crypto tracing software and blockchain analytics software that enables you to track and see where the money is sent. But if you're planning a scam and you know what you're doing is a scam and you know that crypto and Bitcoin can be tracked and you have enough money at your disposal, there are also, people have cashed out in advance. So it's expected that, for example, Gerald Cotton, the man behind Quadriga, that there's rumors that, people saw him with $50,000 in banknotes at a time. So, and if you've got this type of money at your disposal and you're planning an escape or you think that might be an opportunity, then there is the possibility to cash out into, maybe that is physical banknotes, or into, fine art or whatever that is. And that's I think the reality is that these people, if that is the case, would have cashed out into assets that are less traceable than crypto.
It definitely sounds like an incredible read.
I hope so.
Erica, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I look forward to getting the book and reading all these crazy stories.
Chris, thank you so much for having me on. Really grateful.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Easy Prey podcast. If you found something memorable or actionable about this episode, please leave a comment as a review at easyprey.com/review. Notes and a transcript of this episode with Erica Stanford can be found at easyprey.com/74.